Great Scott. Great Scott. Great Scott.
Hello everyone and welcome to another fabulous episode of Great Scott. I'm Scotty V. Thanks for watching. Today I wanted to talk a little bit about Matthew Vaughn, who is currently rumored to be a possible choice for director of Man of Steel 2. There are two issues with this. No one has ever announced that there will be a Man of Steel 2. It's not considered in the works. It's not on the list. No executives have talked about it. Nobody has ever said that it's a priority. No one has ever said that it's going to happen. And it seems like Superman continues to get short shrift in the movies, both in advertising campaigns for upcoming movies and then also in movies we've already seen, such as Batman v Superman. Although I still contend it was a Superman movie and that Batman was the villain. Batman was certainly the shining standout in that movie in terms of who gets to go forward. He's going to be the leader of the Justice League. He's the guy who starts it, which is unfortunate because Superman has always been at the forefront of that, the inspiration of that, the leader of that, the spokesperson of that, the upfront guy. Batman's a guy in the shadows. Batman's a guy who doesn't like people. Batman's a guy who doesn't talk to people. Batman's not normally representative of someone that you would want speaking for your organization. He gets things done. He beats up on criminals. He fights for vengeance, but he usually lets other people do the talking, do the inspiring, do the recruiting and leading. In that way, Batman can always be a leader in terms of strategy, in terms of coming up with a plan, in terms of possibly figuring things out and coordinating teams and that sort of thing. But they're really making this a Batman-started league. Wonder Woman will be involved, and of course, she's the huge star of the DC film universe right now, with huge box office numbers, huge sales for Blu-ray, and everybody pretty much universally loving the film, where they did not love Man of Steel, Suicide Squad, Batman v Superman universally. Some people liked, some people hated, some people loved, some people thought, it was okay. But Wonder Woman, across the board, everyone loved. So lately, Matthew Vaughn has admitted that he has had talks with Warner executives about Man of Steel 2. This is great for two reasons, because as I said earlier, no one has ever said it's happening. No one has ever said it's been announced. No one has ever said it's a priority. No one has ever said they care about Superman or that they want to do something good with Superman. They seemed to be unhappy with the box office results of Man of Steel. I'm sure they're unhappy with the box office results of Batman v Superman. It seemed like they added Batman as an afterthought to try and save their film franchise for Batman v Superman and made that movie what it was because they thought they needed an influx of Batman, who is the most popular superhero in the world, arguably. So they put him in, and that didn't even do that well. Now, a lot of people say, well, it's because the spirit of neither of those characters was really caught in the film. They were both treated a way that they've never been treated before. They both acted in ways that many fans don't think either character should have acted. So, word from Matthew Vaughn is that he loves the Richard Donner take. He feels that that's the spirit of Superman, but that it only worked for that time the way they did it. So in his mind, he thinks he would do a modern take on the Richard Donner feel and take of those films. The problem with that is the Richard Donner films were great for their time. They were very inspirational. They were very cool in a lot of ways. The music is great. Christopher Reeve was great, but they were also very cheesy, very over the top, and there wasn't much happening in terms of villains fighting, superpowers, other than Superman flying around. Now, part of that is, of course, because they didn't have the technology to do much else. A lot of people like to stand on the fact that it's full of heart and full of character, and I don't agree with all of that. I do feel a nice warm place in my heart for those films. I did love Christopher Reeve. I unfortunately was never a huge fan of Margot Kidder as Lois. I was never really a huge fan of Gene Hackman as Lex, as I came to know Lex in my adult years. He's very funny and he's very campy, and then you got Otis and it's goofy. I quote Gene Hackman's Lex Luthor lines all the time. Otis Berg, Do you want to see a long arm? Do you want to see a very, very long arm, Otis? So those are, I mean, it's funny, but it's not really indicative of the Lex Luthor I want. Neither is Jesse Eisenberg, though I don't have as much of a problem with him as a lot of people do. Different version of Lex, but Lex, not Lex 2, even though he was Junior and there was another Lex. This is the Lex for this universe. Now, they are talking about this whole alternate line, and maybe with Matthew Vaughn or someone else, they're going to relaunch Superman, still using Henry Cavill and still using, but change some of the things. And if that'll make fans happy and that's okay, I guess that'll be fine. I just want to see Superman looked upon by them as something important, looked upon as a priority. And if Matthew Vaughn or another director can do that, if they can make it brighter and more optimistic, and they can make his suit have underwear, and that makes people happy, more power to them. I love Henry Cavill. I love the cast that they have assembled for these films. And I think there's a much greater, more realistic connection between he and Lois in these films than there ever was in the films before. They just kind of told us, well, this is Lois, and they're supposed to have a romance. Whereas there was a clear humanity between the two of them in the Man of Steel version. Going forward, Matthew Vaughn has directed a number of movies I've enjoyed. X-Men First Class, which I thought was one of the best of that series. Kingsman, which I love. And here's the thing, with Kingsman you get a lot of non-stop action, pretty vulgar language, but with X-Men First Class you get a family-rated entertainment with some action, but with a lot of character moments and deep plot things that go on. So I think he has the ability to do both things pretty well. A lot of people are saying he's all about style and visuals, which is the problem we already have with Zack Snyder. Why would you go with somebody like that? I don't have a problem with Zack Snyder, but I think if you have a great visual style for a comic book and you can cover character, which I think Zack Snyder has done and I think Matthew Vaughn has done, you might have a winning combination there. We don't know what's happening. There hasn't been an official announcement that Man of Steel 2 is even coming, but the fact that they're seemingly talking to someone about it, I think is great news. I think Matthew Vaughn would be just fine. I think it would be a mistake to reboot the Richard Donner universe. We already tried that with Superman Returns, and people didn't like that either. The music's not a problem if you can meld it with the new music, or I guess even if you just go back to it. But the problem is people then confuse it and think it's part of that, and think it's not something new. I'm not exactly sure what... I mean, I think a new take was a great idea, and I think Man of Steel worked pretty well for the most of it. There are some things that I may have changed. The Jonathan scene seems to be a sticking point for a lot of people. I would have rather they went with the Byrne era, where his parents were both alive for a good long time after he became Superman. I like Jonathan in his life as an adult, but people love the Batman treatment. They did it to Flash. They killed off his parents. They did it to Superman, and this, you know, Martha gets to live, but they did it in the Donner films. Back then, I mean, and through life, through his incarnation as a hero, both his parents have been dead, one has been dead, one or the other has been dead, neither have been dead. So it's not like it's unprecedented, but I thought it would be a fresher take to keep them both alive, and I think it's a bit of a cop-out to say that's what makes him grow up, that's what makes him mature, that's what makes him become Superman, that his father dies. No, that's Batman. But anyway, I think talks about Man of Steel 2 with actual people who could be involved in making it is great news, and I think it's more than we've gotten in a long time. Thanks, everybody, for watching, and remember, always look up in the sky.